Hello, Hockey World. It is Friday, April 23rd, 2021.
I'm Michael Agello.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
I'm Kevin Allen from HockeyBuzz.
And I am Eklund. You're watching the HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes to you every Monday through Friday to fill you in on the comings and goings in the hockey world with our buddy Kevin Allen, who's here on Fridays. And I get more and more requests. Everyone, I can't tell you, like everybody says, no one ever asks, is Mike going to be here or Russ going to be here? Everybody, But everybody asks.
If nobody wants Russ, screw them.
Everybody asks.
Every day. I'm just a guest star,
Because everyone's like, is Kevin coming this Friday? I'm like, yes, Kevin will be here hopefully this Friday. So yes, indeed. So we are thrilled to have Kevin. We're going to play a little game that Kevin has today, which is going to be kind of fun. We're going to talk about how I'm right again and how Mike and Russ are wrong.
No. We're going to start off on how you are wrong.
All right, go ahead and start. Explain. I would love to hear that, Mike, because no one's ever called me wrong before. It's the internet, so I'm not used to being called wrong. But go ahead, continue.
Well, it's just anybody who watches this show and anybody in the chat room can attest to the fact that you have been trying to poke holes in the Eastern Conference by saying, well, maybe the Bruins won't make it. And now it's obvious the Bruins will make it. Well, maybe the Penguins won't make it. But the Penguins still only have 3 home losses. Well, maybe they'll lose to the Sabres. And maybe they'll lose to the Devils. And they're not losing to any of those teams. Matter of fact, they're building their leads. And it's to the point where now the Rangers, after losing to the Flyers, are out of it too. The only thing they're fighting for is positioning. But the playoffs are pretty much determined in the East.
Well, okay. The Caps are faltering lately. So,
they got 64 points.
If you notice, the Caps have come back down. Listen. Obviously, what I've been saying the whole time is that I believe in hope. I know you guys don't have any chance, any belief in hope, but I do believe in hope until hope is gone. And
my life is hopeless,
I know, and obviously, when I asked people to pay money to Patreon if they believed in hope and no one did, I think our crowd out there does not believe in hope as well. But I will say this. Obviously last night's loss for the Rangers is a devastating loss, and no question. The Bruins have won 6 in a row. That's impressive. They've really taken it on.
The Penguins won 8-2-1 as well.
Yeah, no, the Penguins, the Penguins and Bruins are both are really enjoying beating up on the Devils and the Sabres right now. Collectively. Now, they aren't going to just play the Devils and Sabres for the rest of the year. So, those games are going to end soon, and soon they're going to have to play each other, at which point unless we have all 3-point games like we did last night with the Islanders and the Capitals, which is like those 3-point games in that situation kill the Rangers because one of those teams last night shouldn't have gotten a point. One does. Both get a point. One gets 2. And the Rangers can't afford losses like last night, but they're also not going to go, 15-0 the rest of the way. So, to me, last night was a, we'll see what happens type thing. They still
we'll see what happens. 12 points is like the closest gap. We won't see what happens. We know what's going to happen. Let's see what Kevin thinks about this.
Please. The voice of reason.
Yeah, I go through this all the time on my podcast as Tom Laidlaw tries to sell me the idea that the Rangers are coming back. And to be honest, the Rangers are impressive. Like just recently, I stared at the standings and I actually chuckled because the Rangers had the best goal differential and they were the 5th place team. Now they've fallen now, but they're still second, in goal differential. And I've had people within the hockey community said, boy, if the Rangers get in, you got to worry about them a little bit because they're playing really, really well. They're playing as well as anyone, but the numbers don't back it up. And I know you went through and looked at the strength of standings, but I've always felt as I talked to you on that particular day that you can just take it from the general perspective of record. And if you just add up the number of points, I think the Rangers only have 9 games left. Is that correct? 9?
Yeah, they only have 9 games left now.
So they can only get, if they go 9-0, they can only get 18 points.
Right.
So what that means is that the teams above them would really have to
somebody has to go south. Yeah, somebody has to go south in a big way. And it doesn't. Honestly, the Penguins have, although they're doing everything they can. Giving up 6 goals in the third period the other day. The Devils
home losses 3. They have more home games. When do you expect them to go on this big home losing streak?
Yeah,
I don't expect it. I mean, obviously, I've never said that I thought this was going to happen for sure.
Why mention it?
Why mention it? Because it's because it exists. I mean, the reality is like you guys are too quick to be like it's over, and it's not over.
Bigfoot doesn't
And
exist.
let's throw this out there too. You guys were also saying it was over, and that the 4 teams in the Central were set up when I first said this, and now everyone's starting to say, well, wait a second, maybe not, maybe Dallas, maybe Nashville. I mean, and so the reality is, sometimes it's not over, and that was the point I was trying to make through this whole thing, and I think I made my point. That's why I feel like I'm right.
Well, I mean, the Central's been a little tighter than
yeah, but it wasn't at the time I did everything. At the time I did everything, Kevin, it was just the same, basically the same as this, and the Predators went nuts, and
Chicago's still got to win that game tonight. That was a huge loss by Dallas. Last night to a team that. And what about Vrana? Like,
oh my gosh, 4 goals. I mean, this is the thing right now. You don't want to play. You do those teams are like even playing the Flyers last night for the Rangers. It's just you don't want to play those games.
Well, Kev,
I told you, Vrana's got star potential, and he just needed to break out from a team that had too many guys with too many touches of the puck.
And what's interesting about the Red Wings right now is Bertuzzi was their MVP before he went down, and he's gone for the season. Larkin's not playing, then there's a possibility he'll be out for a while.
Yeah.
And who else am I forgetting? They have a lot of people out, and here's they step up and they win that big game, and Vrana gets 4 goals. And, what's interesting about that trade is still. The fact that Yzerman is perfectly content with the fact that Mantha may be a big time scorer with Washington. He did what was right for his team. He's got a faster player, and he's got a guy that he thinks will score a lot of goals. But and Panik is helping the team. He knows Panik, from the past, but he got that 1st and 2nd round pick. And that's the key for him. So
that's
there's no reason why. And by the way, Robertson is so good.
He is.
And it's not like we didn't know that, but what I really marvel at is just his quickness around the net.
Yeah, his hands are great.
Well, his hands were terrific, but I watched him, and he was in the high slot area, and it just seemed like, and just in a flash, he was just right on the doorstep, and I'm going, holy cow.
I've been saying this for a while now. The one thing that just is amazing to me is that we have the level at which players now that are training and coming, and just the drills and the skill levels that of the training that's going on with stick handling and doing things at high speeds is unprecedented. So what you're seeing is you're starting to see these players as a result of that. You're starting to see, and McDavid was the obvious first one, but after McDavid, I mean, there's all these other guys too that, I watch a guy like Morgan Frost or Farabee, just young guys who are like, these are normal, but suddenly, bam, you're like, what the heck? How did they do that quickly? Well, that level is that's changed.
I know that Matthews has worked the last couple of seasons with a skills coach, and you can notice, and don't get me wrong, his skill level as a rookie and as a second-year player was off the charts. You see him now make moves, stick handling moves that are lightning fast, that you can't really even see it what he's doing until you watch the replay. So I think the skill level of some of these players has just increased exponentially. But I have to say, Kevin, one of the things that's motivating here, and not to say everything is dollars and cents, but Vrana is a restricted free agent at the end of the year. Detroit's got a lot of cap space. He probably wants to get a nice long-term deal, and he wasn't going to get that in Washington. That's part of the reason why he was traded. And he's basically setting himself up for a big money deal here at the Wings, the way he's playing.
Yeah, but you can say all that, but he's with a terrible team.
Right.
Like it's not like he can come in and make everyone better passers.
Right.
And he doesn't have Larkin giving him the puck, like he wasn't there.
Sure.
Zadina played well and set him up. He had things happen. So a lot of that he can't control just because, when he was in Washington, it's a catch-22. When he was in Washington, he had a lot of talent, but he didn't get the minutes. So now he comes to Detroit getting the minutes, but he doesn't have the talent.
Right.
So, he's made things happen. He's an exciting player, and it's going to be interesting. And the other thing that's lost on that trade is that Vrana's a year younger than Mantha. So and that's important when you're rebuilding and when your boss is saying it's going to be patient because it's going to take a long time.
I want to give credit to another person here too, Kev, because it's not often that a Western team has a scout located in the East all the time, same city. And I think that's what helped with this Vrana deal. I don't know for sure, but I'm going to say the fact that Mark Howe is at every Flyers game and saw a lot of the Capitals the last couple of years helped make this trade possible. And so I'm going to give him credit, just feeling like that is a big factor.
Yeah, it probably does. I don't know, specifically the details on that, and you never will know it because, I said, Yzerman guards his information. But, it's just a good trade. And I don't think it was a horrible trade for Washington because
they got a goal scorer. They
got a goal scorer. Not only that, but they weren't going. They were going to have trouble signing Vrana, as you mentioned, and Panik was a drain on them. He for whatever reason, he's an okay hockey player who can contribute. He's not a guy that's going to be the difference between winning the cup or not.
Sometimes you put him somewhere and he does well, and sometimes he doesn't.
He was decent as a fourth liner in Toronto. He was decent in Tampa Bay. He scored 20 goals on the wing with Taves and Kane in Chicago. So he's not like you know what it is. Panik to Detroit is like the Brett Connolly move to Chicago. Brett Connolly will contribute in Chicago. It's just he was sort of a drain where he was salary wise.
Yeah.
One of the things that's being talked about that I think our viewers will be interested in, and we'd have to look at it. But the return that he got for taking Mark Stahl's salary is better than Buffalo got for trading away Taylor Hall.
Yeah, and that's
that's one of the things that's kind of come out here in Detroit,
right?
And that's one of the strengths of Yzerman and. Is that he makes these things that you don't really think about, and his confidence, man. I'm sure there are other general managers that are as confident as Steve Yzerman, but right now I would say even though he has not done anything yet in Detroit, he's a very confident general manager. He feels and he could do no wrong. He walks on water in Detroit.
Well, I mean,
it helps too. That helps to have that kind of, that kind of confidence of the city and the players and then the people around and the media. They're all, not just questioning everything you do. They're looking, they're saying, okay, let's have a reason for that.
Well, the reason he got more for Stahl was because he took the full $5.7 million, the full freight for almost an entire year. Whereas the Sabres only the Bruins only had to take the $4 million on Taylor Hall's deal, and to for Detroit fans out there, I mean, the next year or two you're gonna get Sider from the SHL after he wins Rookie of the Year in the SHL, Veleno, Lucas Raymond, whoever their top pick is in this upcoming draft, who could it could be one of the Michigan kids. I mean, they're going to be very good, not immediately, but within 2 or 3 years they're going to be a really good young team.
Okay, and you're right, Mike. And what's interesting about that to me is that you got to remember. To me, the two teams that are the most dangerous, like 3 or 4 years from now, that are like that, are Ottawa and Detroit.
Yeah,
and then also throw Florida in there too, because they're coming along pretty strongly now, and they're making better.
Florida's more dangerous because of the goaltending. Ottawa doesn't really necessarily have the right goalie yet to make that happen.
Matt Murray's tearing it apart right now, right? But that's
I don't know if he's going to play like that for many more years.
But when you think about that, then throw that into that. These teams that I just mentioned are all really in the same division.
Yeah, but
and that's the crazy thing. So, like when we get back to Ottawa, Detroit, and Florida are all in the same division. Throw that into Tampa's going to still be good. Of course, Toronto's going to still be good. Man,
Boston made the
Boston. I mean, that division is really, really good now.
Yeah. Well. Let's wait. I like Ottawa's collection right now a little better than Detroit's. I do love Sider, but Veleno could play soon.
He'll play next year.
No, he's here. He's
here. He came back from
he's here. So he may play in the next game or two. He's just quarantined.
Yeah, I like
the big question, and Russ, you have far better knowledge on this than I do. But the big debate is in the scouting community and in Detroit among the fan base because of that is, whether Veleno will be able to score. Like, they know he's a good hockey player. They know he's going to play in the league. Everybody says that he's got a 200-foot game. But the question is, can he score enough to play in the top six?
I'll tell you what the deal is. The deal is he lost some confidence in juniors, and he addressed that at the draft. And I do think he has made some gains in that area because I don't know what his scoring was. I'm looking it up now, but I know he was, he's playing against men, and I think he was putting up pretty decent numbers. Let's see, his SHL numbers are, he had
11 goals.
Points, 11 goals, 20 points. Those are really good numbers because we don't even know if he got power play time there. So I do think he'll score. He is a strong kid and he skates well. I do think he could be a second line center. I do.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think there's still a hope that he's going to do that. I mean, that's what they're going to give him that opportunity. So, but anyway, I wanted to play a little game with everyone.
Yeah.
Now I'm just going to give you, these are real live stats and their numbers. And, I looked at them and I thought, do these things have any relevance? Do they mean anything? It's very similar to what you were talking about last time when you were going through that. And I thought, who better to discuss that than my friends?
There you
go. HockeyBuzzcast. So, okay, here's a stat that I think will cause some debate.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
Carolina has the NHL's third best save percentage at .922. Now,
that's a great one.
You have just two answers: either statistics don't lie, or tell your statistics to shut up. So which one is it, guys?
Kevin, with all due respect, tell your statistics to shut up, because the only caveat to this is Alex Nedeljkovic, who is unproven. I mean, he's a good young goaltender who won a Calder Cup with their AHL affiliate with Charlotte. And he is unproven in the playoffs. He could be a Jordan Binnington type because he's around the same age, 25 years old, and he could step in a play if they give him the opportunity to take a run in the playoffs. But I don't think they're going to. I think Brind'Amour is going to either go with Reimer or Mrazek if either one of them are healthy. And if they do, I think it's the reason save percentage is such a misleading statistic is I essentially it's like, when are you making those saves? James Reimer is statistically been a very good goaltender, but when it counts, he's a sieve. And that's the problem. Like at 4-1 in Game 7 in 2013, he couldn't stop a beach ball. But the rest of the year, he was great.
That's a little while ago.
I'll give an answer. I'm going to tell this. I'm going to say definitely I'm going to ask the statistics to shut up. And the reason I'm going to do that is with save percentage, yes, that first save does count as your save percentage. But the way that Carolina collapses, they definitely help get rid of like the rebound control problem that Mrazek obviously has and gets the puck out of there quickly. It also affects their offense because sometimes their offense goes dead. They spend so much time on defense. So this defense is so suffocating that it does help the goalie save percentage in my estimation.
I'd like to agree with both of you, but then we'd all be wrong. So let me just say that you guys are absolutely 100% wrong, and as per usual in this situation. These statistics are very telling, but not like when Kevin gives these statistics out, it doesn't mean we're supposed to sit here and say that Carolina has the best goalies in the world. That's not what this statistic is about. When he's giving this statistic out, what I'm hearing here is Rod Brind'Amour's system and the defensive system that team plays keeps the high quality shots down. And that to me is an enormous part of when you watch the Carolina Hurricanes, what they're good at. And that is why that they can almost get away. They can almost, like we said, get away with Mrazek and these guys. And this is why it's so difficult, I think, on talent, and where I think that he is actually not talent. I'm sorry. On the GM there, I'm losing my mind. Thank you. On Waddell, because Waddell realizes that they are so solid that they can almost get away with that medium to medium good goalie. And I think they can get away with that until they get later in the playoffs, And I think
I'll give you a number, Eck. I'll give you a number. the quality save percentage, and I don't want to rip Nedeljkovic because I like him. He's a good young goalie. Quality save percentage on Nedeljkovic is .667.
Okay.
Which is okay, but it's not great.
But you know what is an average quality save percentage, Russ? I mean, you're talking about really high percentage shots there, right? So quality save percentages usually aren't in the 900s like we're used to seeing.
No, but I mean, even 66%, it's okay. It's not super fantastic. It's not bad.
So I mean, none of these stats say that we all suddenly think that Carolina's got the goalie they need to win a Stanley Cup. But what the statistic does tell us is that Brindamore's system is pretty good.
Yeah, that's what I would say as well. That's why statistics don't lie. I mean, the teams that have the best save percentages this year are the top teams in the league. You know, Islanders, Vegas Golden Knights, and all of them either have a premium goalie or they have an incredibly strong system. And so, while I think, would the Carolina Hurricanes be better off if they had Vasilevsky or Carey Price or one of the the answer would probably be yes, but I'm not so sure that that would have given them I don't think they need to have better save percentages as much as the fact that they have a good system in Rod Brennan.
And one more thing there to say about that I think is important is that if you took this team as it is now and transformed them and put them in Toronto or Montreal, the pressure would be very different in different ways on getting that goalie.
Sure.
But
I remember,
and I think that's the issue. When I hear you say that, you're looking at this from okay, if this was my team in Toronto,
I'm looking at it as the chink in the armor of a team. Not just a team that's playing in a massive psychotic media market like New York or Toronto, but if this team wants to win a Stanley Cup, what do they need to do to improve their chances? With Toronto, it was add a forward like Nick Foligno. With Carolina, it was to add a goaltender who could make the save when they need to make the save. I mean, against Boston, the last two playoffs, they needed a big save at times, and Reimer or Mrazek couldn't do it. And that's
Mrazek's played in 9 games. He has the exact quality save percentage that Nedeljkovic does, and that's how you know it's the defense.
Yeah, but also Nick Nedeljkovic has been frigging phenomenal. His numbers are right up there with Sorokin's. His numbers are very similar to Sorokin's.
But if you watch him play, he's not been phenomenal. He's been a good goallie. Sorokin is a much better goalie.
And that's why I offered the caveat. I mean, Nedeljkovic could be the real thing, but we have not seen it in a playoff scenario, and that's why I'm anxious to see if Rod Brind'Amour puts him in that playoff scenario instead of going back with the comfort level of going with a more experienced goaltender. If he does and they have success, then there you go. Then they have a goalie. But right now, I don't know.
There you go. All right, Kevin, give us another.
All right, we got the Boston Bruins are the only team in the league who are averaging more than 10 penalty minutes per game.
Okay.
Is that a relevant statistic?
What's the number?
Yes. Can I start on this one?
Go ahead.
This is absolutely relative, and this is why. What people often don't realize about penalty minutes is a team that takes a lot of penalty minutes. Yeah, they're shorthanded a lot, but they're also a team like the Bruins aren't afraid to be shorthanded, and teams that aren't afraid to be shorthanded are dangerous. Because when and you saw this very, very clearly in the Flyers Bruins series this year, where the Flyers couldn't stop the Bruins. So when the Flyers played the Bruins, they couldn't stop them on the power play. The Bruins were 70% on the power play. So when the Flyers played the Bruins, they played like they were afraid to take penalties, which you cannot do against a team like the Bruins because they will just skate around you. You have to at least be aggressive. So I think the aggressiveness of the Bruins and the fact that they take penalties and the arrogance of the Bruins, which is just general thing, and because they've been around for such a long time, and they have the arrogance just says, fine, we'll take 10 penalties a game, but we're not, we're going to make the referee, he's going to miss, he's not going to call 10 as well.
I'm going to say the statistics don't lie in this one. X partially right. The other part of this equation is the Bruins have taken an enormous amount of penalties against teams like the Sabres.
Yes.
A lot of these bad teams because they know their power play stinks. That's why they do.
Yeah, yes, and also, and I'll go along with both of you in the fact that the Bruins know that they have the best penalty killing and have had that for eons. I mean, Bergeron and Marchand. I mean, they had Chara before, but guys like Carlo on defense. I mean, and they know that they can take penalties and play on the edge, like play that Bruins hockey that is effective, and take penalties and not get wounded by it because and they can turn their penalties into offensive chances because they have their best players out there killing penalties. So they can do it with impunity.
I'm going to tell the statistics to shut up too, just for they're 28th in goals against on the power play. There's only 3 teams that have given up fewer goals. They're just terrific at killing penalties, and I think that comes with Bruins tradition. They want to play more physical. They want to play good defensively. They're going to take penalties. They're not afraid to take penalties, as Eklund said, and I think it's disruptive to the other team when you play like that. Okay, I
love that one. It's a really good one.
If the Montreal Canadiens play 500 hockey the rest of the way, the Calgary Flames would have to go 10-1. Or the Vancouver Canucks would have to go 11-5 to get into the playoffs if Montreal plays 500 hockey.
Statistics do not lie. The Canadiens will go at least 500. They play Toronto 4 times in their remaining games, which automatically will give them at least 2 victories.
I'll be back, guys. 1 second. I gotta grab this thing. Right back. Right.
Yeah, that'll automatically give them at least 2 victories because they always play Toronto tough, and I think that they'll be sort of girding up their loins for a Toronto-Montreal first round series. So that'll work themselves up into a lather. I just think that it's a bridge too far for Calgary to be able to have that kind of record in the remaining time and in the remaining 3.5 weeks of the regular season. Or, Ack was saying, oh my God, Vancouver is going to catch them because they beat Toronto twice. Well, they ran into a brick wall yesterday and lost 3-0 to Ottawa. So them coming off COVID, yes, they probably got excited playing against Toronto like every team in Canada does. But again, it's a bridge too far to be able to expect Vancouver to make up that deficit. So, statistics don't lie. Montreal is going to be 4th spot. Russ.
Yeah, the stats don't lie in this one. I mean, I think Montreal will definitely make the playoffs, but I also feel like we can't measure statistically what the energy level is going to be from game to game with Vancouver, because I do think it's going to go up and down like it has been with players that have had COVID. And by the way, PK Subban is the latest to admit he has COVID. So, but anyhow, I don't think those teams are going to get there. And if this was a healthy Canucks team and you were saying they had to go 11-5, I might be singing a different tune, but it's not a healthy Canucks team.
And here's another complicating factor, Kev. One player in Calgary, they haven't specified who, has tested positive for COVID. They canceled their morning skate today. They haven't canceled the game yet, but they may cancel the game because they don't want it spreading through the team and even spreading to the other team, which is Montreal, I believe. So they could have a week off like Vancouver did, or Vancouver was more like 3 weeks off. But if they have to shut down the team, then it makes it even more complicated for them to make up the games over the remaining time. And that'll just make it even tougher for them to.
Yeah, they look like Flamester's not even on board that they're going to make the playoffs, so we could all move on.
In the past month, the Pittsburgh Penguins have had 7 games in which they scored 5 or more goals. And eight games in which they've scored 5 or more goals, and 8 games when they've given up 2 or fewer goals.
Ross?
Yeah, I'm going to say the stats don't lie in the sense that they are a wildly inconsistent team when it comes to defense and goaltending, but their offense is pretty steady. And so, end of the day, I do think this is possible, and even possible for them to move on a round or 2 with this, because you saw what they did with the Devils. They're the only team that's ever overcome like a 5-goal deficit and score 5 third-period goals to get a win. It's crazy. It shouldn't have happened, but this is the way they play. Like, I don't think they draw it up that way.
No, and I agree with Russ. The statistics don't lie here, and this is why it puzzles me even more that Eck has been on this gone on this tangent the last week or so, thinking that Pittsburgh was the team that was going to sort of drop trow and lose like 7 or 8 in a row. I mean, they're scoring consistently. I mean, defensively, no, they're not the greatest team. In goaltending, there's still some questions with Jari, but I think that they're in. I don't think they're going to. You've got Sidney Crosby there. You've got a bunch of players who have had playoff success. So I didn't see any reason why, any sign that they were going to all of a sudden just collapse.
Eck, the statistic is the Pittsburgh Penguins have scored 5 or more goals 8 times in the last month, but they've given up 2 or fewer 8 times as well.
Giving up 2 or fewer, yes. They're giving up more than 2 a game. Basically, you're saying. I think this matters a lot, and I think that matters a lot because first of all, yes, they probably have a good enough start to get in the playoffs, like we've all talked about, right? But I do think that you're not going far in the playoffs if you're not going to be able to keep your goals down. Like it's just as your goals against down, it's just not going to work. I mean, as we've seen before, it's easier for teams to match against teams in the playoffs. It's easier to stop. The Penguins aren't a very deep team, honestly. And I think that, and they gave up too many goals. So not being a deep team.
They are keeping their goals down.
Yeah.
More than we think.
Yeah. Well, here's what I would say.
Was I reading that wrong? I'm sorry. But no, but they've also given up a lot of goals. And I mean,
they have had some games when they gave up.
No, they've had those, but he's saying the amount of games that they've had.
Okay, so they're gotcha. In the last they have played better, no questions about it. But also we've seen in that they also gave up 6 goals in the third period to the Devils just recently. So it's like, to me, that defense is all over the map, and there's the consistency. Without consistency, you're screwed.
Yeah, I'm gonna. I've got some confusing thoughts on that statistic because I've watched this team a lot, and what I've seen is a team that can play a variety of different ways. And I'm going to disagree a little bit with you on the depth. What I find remarkable about this Penguins team is they're getting a lot of goals from a lot of different guys. Each time when you look at the scoring summary, it's not all Crosby line that's getting it done. There's there's just a lot of guys that are scoring goals that you just wouldn't think would score goals, but they are. And I think defensively, they've played better than people think they have. They've had some games when they've imploded, but they also have played very well in some games when they've managed to hold some leads. So I think it's an indication of a team that can play, playoff style hockey if they need to do it. And, like Dumoulin, since he's come back from injury, when you watch him, like, he is a very, very underrated defenseman. Like, he is very, very dependable. So,
he is definitely that.
I don't think the Penguins are a perfect team, but I think they're just as capable. I looked it up before we came on the air, and they're like have a great record against the Islanders, a good record against Washington, not so good against Boston, which is very similar to the records that the other teams have. There's one team that you have trouble with, but 2 others that you're doing well against. So anyway.
So true.
All right,
and
I like that one too.
And they've also done it the last 5 weeks without Evgeny Malkin. So,
and he's going to be back.
Yeah, he's going to be back.
I wanted to real quickly on the thing that I couldn't talk about before. I think I do very much believe that Montreal can go less than 500 the rest of the way, and that's why I still think that that's possible. I am not sold on them at all. They don't score goals. They just don't score goals. And if Price is hurt and they don't score goals, I could see Vancouver. I'm not saying it's absolutely going to happen, but I can see Vancouver.
Russ, this sounds eerily familiar. Montreal can't score goals. Where have I heard that before? Okay.
All right. This is for Mike.
With no idea what you're talking about.
With 3 weeks to go before we're going to start the playoffs, and the season winding down, the Toronto Maple Leafs have given up 29 goals in their last 7 games, an average of more than 4 goals per game.
The statistics do not lie. They have received, I would say, below average goaltending, other than last night where Jack Campbell made, I think it was 34 saves in the win over Winnipeg. Their save percentage throughout this 5-game losing streak since the deadline was .877. So they were just not getting good goaltending from Campbell or David Riddick, who was responsible for the loss to Vancouver earlier in the week. Now, that being said, I don't think they've been playing as good defensively as they had been for most of the regular season. So it's sort of like a slippery slope there. They were being saved at times by the goaltending of Campbell when he won 11 in a row. But last night they played probably their best game in a month against Winnipeg. They got a 2-0 lead, then gave up a couple goals, and then responded and played pretty solid the rest of the way. So, I think that any chance of Toronto advancing in the playoffs, getting through the North Division, and having a chance to win in the semifinals is going to rely on them getting at least competent goaltending, and either that from Campbell or from Freddie Anderson if he comes back. I don't think any of the three goalies they have are going to stand on their head in the playoffs, so they can't rely on that. They're going to have to be overpowering defensively and with their forwards. And once they get Zach Hyman back, and they're fully healthy up front, I think that they could be overpowering to a lot of teams.
Can I say something on this? I think that this stat is – I think you can throw those stats away. And the reason I think that is I think that although, of course, these stats are real, obviously the real numbers, I do think that Toronto fell into a little bit of lethargy, a little bit of apatheticness because they knew they were going to make the playoffs. They really got a pretty good lead on everybody.
They were dozed.
Yeah, but that again, that being said, like you said, the only issue I have with that is what separates Toronto from really being a serious contender to me is they still have not shown the ability to be consistent for long periods of time, and that they're better than they were. They were for most of this year. They looked really good with consistency. This was a shot back to the old days, sort of the end of the last coach's era, these last few weeks, and I think that. That's an issue. And they, now maybe I remember when the Penguins were first winning their first Stanley Cup with Crosby, they had a similar stretch in that first season. And I remember saying at the time, I'm like, it's probably good that they got this out of their system now. They learned this and they figured out that they can't just coast all the time. And so I think that maybe this was a nice little learning experience for them.
I'm going to say the stats don't lie because the Leafs are like 12th in the league in team defense. They're better than they used to be, but they're still not a Stanley Cup defense. That's really the reality. So like Mike said, they have to get good goaltending and great offense to win because they're not going to win based on the fact on their defense.
Yeah, I'm going to tell the statistics to shut up just from the when this is happening, the timeliness element of it. I don't think it matters whether you're playing well at the end of the season or not. I've had lengthy discussions with GMs about that.
That's a good one. Yeah.
And I know that Kenny Holland has pointed out to me that the Red Wings have won a Stanley Cup when they've been playing well at the end of the season. They've won a Stanley Cup when they were playing terrible at the end of the season. Like, it doesn't seem to matter. It's, you find your groove once you get there. The momentum usually comes not from the regular season, but from what happens in that kind of first round. So I think if they get there, I've been mostly impressed with the Maple Leafs. They seem different to me. That I can't really define it, but they seem like they're in a little better shape.
I think they're better. I do think they're better.
Yeah, well, they're better, but I think there's a little more just sort of a different attitude.
I think that the veterans that they added, Kevin, have really helped them in terms of sort of calming down some of the youngsters and, giving them a little more confidence that their talents can come to the forefront. I mean, that's the reason why they brought in Spezza a couple years ago, why they brought in Simmons and Thornton. And, I know that a lot of people have been critical of Thornton. He hasn't scored since, he scored his first point since May the 14th yesterday. But in the last week or so, he's throwing, or he's gonna in the playoff scenario. He may not score a bunch of points, but he's a big body. He's throwing his weight around, and he's experienced. And for a fourth line guy, that's what you want. You want somebody who can contribute when you need to contribute and can do other things other than just score. And I think Thornton can do that in the playoffs.
As much as their older players have helped them, there's a lot of guys that people really don't know about unless you follow the Leafs carefully that are helping them a lot more than I thought they would. Like Justin Hull has been way better than, he's been a really good defenseman, and people really don't know about him. People don't talk about this kid. Brody was a good pickup, better pickup than I thought it would be. I again wasn't super high on that one, but Justin Hull is just, if you add another player in the lineup that's suddenly like a really serviceable top 4 defenseman like Justin Hull, that makes a huge difference. And that's what we're seeing.
Yeah.
Mike, you know the Leafs better than anyone. Do you think that the difference between the Maple Leafs goaltending and Carolina's goaltending is that Freddie Anderson can make the big saves at the right time? Is that your thought process?
Well, I mean, he hasn't proved that in 4 seasons in Toronto. I personally think that in the first 3 seasons, that was the fault of the players in front of him because their defense was hideous, and Babcock played him a total of 192 games over 3 seasons in the regular season. Rest is not going to be an excuse this year because he's been out for almost he's been out for over a month. It's a question of health. If he's 100% Freddie, then I think he can make the big save in the playoffs. If he's 90% Freddie, like it was when they lost 6 of 7 games, they're going to start Jack Campbell. So the hierarchy in Toronto will know what Anderson is capable of, and then more than likely he's going to get a couple starts because of the other players getting hurt. He's going to get a couple starts before the end of the regular season so they can see how good he's playing. But if I had to gamble, I'd say the starting goaltender in the playoffs is going to be Jack Campbell. And then if that's the question, then I don't know if he's any better than Reimer or Mrazek. It's an unknown quantity.
Freddie or not, here they come.
Yeah, final question, guys. The stat is the Carolina Hurricanes are 4-3-1 versus Tampa this year and 6-0-1 versus Florida. That's 10-3-1 against the heavyweights of that division.
I think I'd tell the statistics to shove it if that's the way. But because honestly, what I think, and I'm sure Don Waddell and Rod Brindamore right now are holding prayer beads and praying that they can win first place in that division and that Florida and Tampa Bay will destroy each other in the first round, because that'll be a pitched battle. It'll be a war, and whoever comes out of that series is going to be a lot more weakened than what Carolina would be against Nashville or Chicago or whoever wins 4th spot in that division. So, I mean, it's nice that they have a great record against Florida and an okay record against Tampa, but I really think it's not going to matter to them who they face in the second round as long as that team has to play the other one and beat the crap out of each other.
I've seen them play every game against Florida, and I'm telling you, there is something to this stat. Basically, that they have absolutely taken the Panthers. Like, the Panthers look great, and then they play the Carolina Hurricanes, and it's just amazing how different they look. So there's something to it.
All right, I'll just say I'm going to tell the stats to shut up because I think they could beat Florida. I don't think they could beat Tampa.
Yeah. The playoffs are a second season, so
it is.
Doesn't mean anything. But what Mike said, I would not tell to shut up, and that is it's important to win the division.
Yes.
You want to face Florida or Tampa after the first round battle. And I think it would be good for the NHL.
Yes,
Florida and Tampa fought in that first round in a very meaningful game. Although, Tampa is just so good. I think Carolina can skate with Tampa. But I'm not.
They can skate with them. I just think Tampa's depth is much greater still.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, for sure.
Kevin,
I got a stat for everybody. Ready? I'm going to throw something into this pile. We'll play this game for one more thing. It's kind of silly, but kind of fun.
I think Russ has to drop off in a minute.
I'll listen to it, then I'll go.
Okay. Patrick Marleau of the San Jose Sharks has appeared in at least one game. You guys see this one? This is a crazy stat. This is really mind-blowing. Patrick Marleau of the San Jose Sharks has appeared in at least one game with 37% of every NHL player who has ever played in the 104-year history of the league. All right, so that's 3,009 of 8,100 players that Patrick Marleau has played at least one game with. 37% of every NHL player who's ever played in the 104-year history Patrick Marleau has played in a game with.
Well, I mean, okay. In a way, that stat lies because the league has blown up exponentially in terms of the number of teams.
Of course.
You know, I mean, was it a 21 team league when he was drafted? It was probably now it's going to be a 32 team league. You know, and you're talking about the first, most of the first 50 years of the league, it was between 6 and 10 teams. So, it's impressive. And it's sort of mind-blowing, but I think it's sort of misleading as well.
Yeah, I'm going to tell the stats to shut up. It's cool. I think Marlowe's had a great career, but like Mike said, it's just one of those Kevin Bacon-ish stats.
Yeah, it's cool. It's like the stat I love about Gordie Howe, that he had played against players from the 1920s through the 21st century, like eight different. He played against Sprague Cleghorn.
That is great.
And who played in the
1920s.
Man. In the 30s and 40s and 50s and 60s and 70s and 80s and in the 2000s. Because, some of the guys he played with in his final season in the NHL made it to
that is just insane.
The 2000s.
And as good as Marlowe's statistic is, yesterday or a couple days ago, we did bring up the fact that if you put Hull's WHA games in there, which is what, 400?
Yeah.
That to me is an astonishing number in and of itself.
Yeah, he played forever. Yeah, maybe
I didn't know anybody could have played 400 games in the WHA. That's the first thing that came to my mind. Like, who could have played 400 games in the WHA?
Yeah.
It wasn't around that long.
Yeah, and he was very good.
Yeah, and that was one of the few franchises in the WHA who actually played from probably beginning to end, because it was a viable franchise with Houston.
I'm gonna have to go, guys. I'm sorry about this.
Well, you guys
want to finish it off, or you want to?
We'll just finish off.
Thank you, Kevin, so much. I really apologize. Great idea today, Kev. I love it. Let's do it again. Thank you so much. We'll talk to y'all soon. Okay. Thanks, guys.
Kevin, I just want to finish off with this because Eck brought it up earlier in the week, and I think it's a bit of a concern for the NHL for next season. Obviously, they want to get this year. They want to get the playoffs, done by I think it's the middle of July. I think that's the target, because the draft and expansion draft are going to be in late July. For the whole, obviously it's part of the motivation is NBC with the Olympics, and they don't want a conflict of the scheduling, but also the NHL wants to start on time for the 21-22 season. But right now, the way things are going in terms of COVID in Canada,
right,
in September and October, it's not 100% sure that the border is going to be open to allow U.S. teams to go and play in Canada. And, if they maintain the divisions as they are right now, I think, well, first of all, I can't see them playing an 82-game regular season inside the Canadian division, meaning they would play – Toronto would play Montreal 11 times, things like that. So, I mean, it's really a big thing for the NHL to either get a waiver from the Canadian government to allow teams to go in and out, or I don't know what the solution would be.
Well, I keep telling people on my podcast that, it's almost as if we're all operating as if it will be business as usual next season. And I don't think it will be. I mean, basically this season's going to end and we're going to start the next one. We're going to be right on top of one another.
Right.
And I just don't know whether, people are talking about full arenas, and I don't know if we're that close. In my home state in Michigan here, we're overrun by the virus again. And I don't know that we have enough people vaccinated. I don't know if we have enough people who are willing to get vaccinated.
Right.
And I don't think more people are dying from this virus, but they're getting sick. So I don't know what's going to happen, but I think the league is concerned about it. I know teams are, because they're willing to talk about it off the record, that they're concerned about what's going to happen, because nobody wants to go through this division setup with 82 games.
So let's take it in two segments here. One, the remainder of this season. The complicating factor here is the North Division with
Right.
COVID, and it's been floated. Elliot Friedman mentioned it last weekend that the possibility of the 4 Canadian playoff teams bubbling in the U.S. is a distinct possibility, based on the rates of COVID going up in Canada. I mean, obviously the thing with Vancouver, now Calgary in the last day or so. If they do that, then they would, and these teams don't want to do that. These players don't want to do it, but they may be forced to do it. They would probably have to bubble in some place like Detroit or Buffalo or someplace like that. And then there wouldn't be a worry in the third round and the Stanley Cup final because they would already be in the U.S. But that's not what the players are going to do what the players are going to do. I mean, the PA is going to go along with it because of hockey-related revenue and things like that. But, I mean, the players don't want to bubble.
No, they don't, and I don't blame them. But that might be your only option. Do you want to play or do you want to forfeit?
Right.
Because this is really messy, to say the least. And or you just tell people whatever happens, what happens. If you can't put a team on the ice, you forfeit. But is that fair to the other teams in the league? So
and that's the biggest disaster scenario here, because I was thinking about this. It's like, okay, you get to 16 teams, and you get to and say the Canadian teams bubble, and all of a sudden the Montreal Canadiens are ravaged by COVID. So they're playing Toronto in the first round. Toronto's not going to wait around. The NHL is not going to wait around for 3 weeks while the Canadians recover. It's going to be like the NCAA tournament, the basketball, the college basketball. It's a forfeit. Unfortunately, that's the only thing that they can do.
I don't see any other alternative to that. That's it's just unfortunate, but I just think that there's not much we can do.
Yeah, and as for next season, remember the draft is in late July. Free agency will start, I think, a few days after that. So you're going to have about 5.5 weeks of off season before teams go to training camp in early to mid September, and then the season would likely start the first week of October. Basically was saying a couple days ago that maybe the NHL doesn't put out a full 82 game schedule at the beginning of the year if there is a border restriction, that maybe the Canadian teams would play intra division for the first month or so. But that's a big complicating factor. And does that mean that the NHL teams will be able to travel, the US based teams will be able to travel freely, and only the Canadian teams are playing intra division?
Plus, it's dangerous because what happens if they don't open up the border? Then what you do that?
There's no guarantee. There's no guarantee that the Trudeau government is going to open the border in September or October. Maybe the league tries to get some indication from them, or like I said, some sort of special dispensation. But the Major League Baseball hasn't been able to get that, and the NBA hasn't been able to get that. So I doubt the NHL will be able to get that for 25 teams instead of it's.
Yeah, I'm very worried about what's the next season will look like, and it could end up looking a lot like this season.
Yeah.
Just because we just don't know where we're at in terms of the virus, and that. We haven't done a good job of predicting yet what the virus is going to do or how it's going to morph, for that reason, I think it's kind of up in the air. I do give the NHL credit for having contingency plans, and but they may be just stuck trying to make this determination. But if they can get through this season, I think they'll at least feel good about that, because. Just hearing about Calgary now, you're starting to wonder.
Yeah.
Because they're trying to get all Vancouver's games in, and
they've already pushed the playoffs forward a week. Now I don't know if you look at the scheduling. I believe the last day of the regular season for Vancouver and Calgary is like May the 18th. They were supposed to start the playoffs before then.
Right.
Is it going to be that the Central, East, and West are going to start the playoffs on the 14th or 15th, and the North Division is going to start it a week later? And if that's the case, then
I don't think you can do a week. You might be able to squeeze it a little bit, and
right,
but I don't think you can do a whole week. It's teams could end up sitting around for 2 weeks.
Right. And you may have some back-to-back playoff games in Canada. If it's,
I think that's inevitable. I don't see how you can get around it.
Yeah. All right, Kev. Thank you very much. For the departed Russ Cohen, for the departed Eklund, and for Kevin Allen, I'm Michael Agello. Thanks for watching. And remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey.